We all have our own behind-the-wheel persona. Are you a windows down, sing-along to your favorite song, seat lean back kind of driver? Or perhaps an AC blasting, podcast on, hugging the wheel kind of driver? However you move through life, Atlantic Union Bank is on board because we agree things should be done your way, especially banking. Work with someone you trust who's there when you need them for all the ways you bank. Call, schedule a video appointment, or make a pit stop at an Atlantic Union Bank branch to learn more. Atlantic Union Bank. Any way you bank.
How about Captain Crunch's Crunch Berries with breakfast?
Whoa, Dad, we're on
Crunch Island. It's Jean-Luc Foot.
And he stole our crunch.
Quick, the zip line.
He's getting away.
Throw our last Crunch Berry. No! No one steals my Crunch Berries.
I think you mean my crunch berries. Choose your own crunch venture with Cap'n Crunch.
Welcome to Pennsylvania in Focus. I'm Anthony Hennon. Today we're discussing Pennsylvania's moving along of its regulations for carbon capture and storage. Joining me today is the Center Square's Pennsylvania editor, Kristen Smith. Kristen, what are these rules and regulations looking like? Why is it moving so fast?
These rules and regulations, it would take longer for me to explain them than it did for them to convene this meeting, vote on this bill, and move on with their days. The reason that that's interesting is because carbon capture and storage is a complex industry. It's a complex technology that the legislature has been talking about for years. Basically, the idea is that you capture carbon emissions from the air and then you store them underground, and that way they're not polluting the atmosphere. Pennsylvania is thought to be a very unique place for this. We have a lot of geographical formations that would make this possible. Obviously, we're an energy hub. That's a huge industry here, and so it would make sense to a lot of legislators that we jump in on this. Also, more recently, we will be the home of 2 hydrogen hubs, which are also in the same vein of using the energy industry to reduce emissions. The controversy here is that it's an unproven technology to a lot of people. There's a lot of money being invested into this, billions of dollars. There's promises of jobs. There's promises of, climate impacts. But those promises just haven't really been borne out by data or by proof yet. There's some projects already in the pipeline, some tax credit expansions that just haven't delivered on similar results. And a lot of the concern here is that taxpayers are footing this bill and we don't know exactly how much it's going to live up to its promises. It's also important to note that carbon capture and storage, according to data, although it's a couple of years out of date, it would be the same as removing something like 2% of the emissions in the atmosphere in the country. So it's not like we're talking about a huge reduction here. Anyway, as I said, it took me a lot longer to say that than it did for them to vote on this, which is unusual given how complex and divisive it really is. And given that we are 3 days as of this recording, it's June 27th, the budget's due June 30th. Given that we are so close to the budget deadline, it signals a much broader agreement on what's in this bill.
Yeah, I think, the big question here, the Republicans control the Senate, the Democrats control the House, and there is some strong Democratic opposition over the idea of these hydrogen hubs and the viability of carbon capture, because the big concern there is hydrogen hubs, if they actually reduce emissions. We've seen some Democratic legislators have said that's kind of what their support or opposition hinges on, whereas there's also a way to do these hydrogen hubs and a way to do these carbon capture projects where it just ramps up the use of fossil fuels and could drive up emissions. So even if there's an agreement, and it seems like Governor Shapiro seems supportive, at least of hydrogen hubs. I'm not sure if he's explicitly talked about carbon capture. Does this signal that it could get through the Democratic-led House, that there's some sort of agreement, or is this still another hurdle and this could take even longer to draw out and get a conclusion?
I think the silence is deafening here in the sense that there was no discussion, which means, past experience would suggest that there is some kind of deal to be made. This is an interesting one because even though environmentalists don't love it, it is a step in the right direction. And you have organized labor who's obviously very supportive of it. We've got the Biden administration sending billions of dollars for these hydrogen hubs. We've got, the natural gas industry that is generally supportive of this kind of technology. It brings enough people together, I think enough sides together. I think that might be greasing its wheels a little bit, or at least drawing enough votes in favor. There's only Democrats have a very slim lead in the House, like 1-2 votes. So really, they only need a couple to knock off. And you've got some of those. You've got Democrats who are in more rural communities or communities where the energy industry is a huge part of the economy. And so therefore, they're going to be more supportive of legislation like this. And it's important to know that this plan is it was authored in the Senate. It passed the Senate. There were some amendments to it. We'll probably hear more about those when they debate it on the floor, likely soon, I would imagine. And then there is the very strong possibility that this bill gets amended into a budget bill. There's going to be a couple that go through in the next couple of days. And they love to do that. They love to take these big policies and throw them into one of these bills, and they're hundreds of pages long. And that signals, yes, this was something that we did as part of the budget. So there's a lot of moving parts here, but it's interesting what they're not saying kind of says it all.
Well, Kristen, thanks for joining us today. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com.
We all have our own behind-the-wheel persona. Are you a windows-down, sing-along to your favorite song, seat-lean-back kind of driver? Or perhaps an AC-blasting, podcast-on, hugging-the-wheel kind of driver? However you move through life, Atlantic Union Bank is on board because we agree things should be done your way, especially banking. Work with someone you trust who's there when you need them for all the ways you bank. Call, schedule a video appointment, or make a pit stop at an Atlantic Union Bank branch to learn more. Atlantic Union Bank. Any way you bank.
Every day, thousands of Comcast engineers and technologists like Oluseyi put people at the heart of everything they create.
Some of my favorite moments throughout my life are watching sports with my dad. Now I work at Comcast as part of the team that created our AI highlights technology, which uses AI to detect the major plays in a sports game.
And now, millions of sports fans will never miss a moment. Visit ComcastCorporation.com to learn more.
How about Captain Crunch's Crunch Berries with breakfast?
Whoa, Dad, we're on.
Crunch Island. He's Jean Lefoot.
And he stole our crunch.
Quick, the zip line.
He's getting away.
Throw our last crunch berry. No! No one steals my crunch berries.
I think you mean my crunch berries. Choose your own crunch venture with Cap'n Crunch.